Hey, Happy New Year. How are you? This is The Collective on WSME Enlightenment Radio. I am Michelle Turner, and it is my pleasure to be with you starting 2021 in the right space and right place. So, thank you so much for joining us. In the studio with me, we're going to talk money because it is the beginning of the year, and most people start over, you know, December 31st up until about January 10th is usually the time when people say, okay, I'm going to make a real honest start. Wealth, health, different things, education, whatever it is to keep them going or to reach a goal in the new year or over the next 2 years. So today we are going to talk money. And I am bringing in the one and only Erica Bradley. And she has a web page, specifically a Facebook page called How Do You Eat an Elephant? One Bite at a Time. And it really deals with finances, how we look at finances, the history behind some things, and also what you can do to save money. So once again, Erica G. Bradley, thank you so much for being here. Now, let me give the prep that Erica is not a financial expert, but what she is doing is offering the rest of us, who she considers herself like, a financial awakening, enlightening, if you will, so that we can move through this life a little bit better when it comes to money. So thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Now, the thing that caught my eye about one of your entries on Facebook, it says, better to go to bed supperless than to rise in debt.
Right. That's right.
And I was like, ooh.
I know.
Because, what Ben is saying, Ben Franklin, is that sometimes if you got to save, you got to give up a meal.
That's it.
You got to do a couple of other things in order to get you to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you think, and this is not a professional opinion before we get into debt and saving and all of that, but how many people around you have you heard say, yes, this is going to be my year, I'm going to really save, I have this financial goal, and then by mid-January, when you talk to them about it, they're like, giving up.
Yeah. We all say it, myself included. First of all, there's like sun coming in here, so
it'll be good.
Okay.
You're good.
But we all say it. It's absolutely, we have the best of intentions. We start out, myself included. I laughed when you said wealth and health, and those are my two things. I'm going to save or I'm going to exercise. And then most of us, by the middle of the month, have gone back to our old practices. And it's just because, it's comfortable and we don't have the support, namely the support like this platform that you're providing, where we can talk about things and encourage one another through it. So, yeah, many of us.
And I think for a lot of us, it's the mindfulness, right? It is really being dedicated to whatever that thing is, because so many of us really have good intentions, but as it is said, good intentions pave the road to hell. So,
doesn't it? Oh, doesn't it just?
Yes. So, I think a lot of us don't take the time to really say, okay, I am going to sit down, figure out what I need to do to save.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's so important. But, I think the only time we realize it is when the car finally dies, or, you're starting to look at this child who you've said, you're going to college, and
now I got to write that check for it.
Now I got to write that check.
Car
you know?
purchases, baby, all their life, and now,
Yes. And now it's like, really? I got
yeah,
to pay for it?
yes.
So I think,
Talk about a supperless night.
okay.
Could be if we're not prepared.
If
It
we're
could be
not prepared.
if we're not
And
prepared.
that is the preparation. That
Mhm.
is being mindful of what's coming up.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about credit score right now,
Okay.
because I think for the most part, most of us don't know what a credit score is until we're in our early 20s.
Mhm.
And again, that goes back to trying to get an apartment or trying to buy a car. And somebody says, well, your credit score is poor. And you're like,
I'm
what?
glad that you're mentioning that because we've got to change that too. There's no reason why a young person should get to their early 20s and only know what a credit score is then. And a lot of times it's too late because it's something that they
Right.
need. And our young people are bombarded with credit opportunities as soon
Yes.
as they hit campus.
Yes.
And it's fun and they're independent and I can shop and I can and sometimes they're using these cards to eat or to pay
Right.
tuition. It's not all frivolous. Don't get me wrong. I know people are doing what they have to do. But then when they get out and like you said, they want to buy a car and they haven't managed that credit score properly, now they have a real problem. So we as parents, just like we provide food for our children and clothing for our children, we have to provide financial information for our children and explain to them about credit and about the credit score and really what it is. And if appropriate for your lifestyle,
Yes.
shift your mindset around the credit score being this almighty marker for
Hmm.
success. Because
Well, I
I
think,
start to feel differently.
yeah, because I think for so many of us, and it may have gotten better with generations, people that are maybe 8 to 10 years younger than me who have
Mhm,
children. I
mhm.
hear them saying, I'm having that financial discussion
Yes,
with my children. Whereas I was never talked to about money other than to get a job, earn it, to pay your bills,
of course.
and, spend it where you saw fit. But it
But the
was never a
how,
conversation,
we're not always taught the how.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was never a conversation built around saving. It was never a conversation built around credit scores, none of that. And it's not to say that my parents, didn't know. It
No,
was just never a discussion.
absolutely, absolutely.
Basically, if you see me doing this, then this is what you should be doing. Instead of even thinking in terms of, let's take it even a little further, a 401k.
I'm taking notes because I get
Okay.
ideas when I'm talking to you. So forgive me if I look down.
No, it's
But
okay. I
yeah,
mean, to even take it to that end of things, saving for your retirement, because still you're looking at this young person and saying, eek, I got to write a check. And this young person is saying, well, once I get out of college, I'm going to get me a good job and that's going to take care of me. But we don't talk about, well, how are you going to provide for yourself?
right. Absolutely.
When do you start saving money? How important is that credit score for you to do other things?
Hmm.
Rates on credit cards,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, rates even when you're financing a car.
Absolutely.
All of these things really kind of depend on being mindful and having that set mind, or I don't even want to say mindset. I say set mind because you have to set it up in your mind that this is something that you are going to do, and you're going to talk to your children, and you're going to share information as you get it, right?
One of the things that I thought about when I said I was writing notes, my next post is going to include educational resources for
Mhm.
children, because I can think of one right off the top of my head. It's a book and a program called Smart Money, Smart Kids.
Uh-huh.
So that's one, but there are a number of online interactive that comes with like a program too, but there's a number of interactive programs out there that will teach your children in lessons, about money management, and credit is part of that. And my daughter and I have gone through that program also, and I found that you're going to get eye rolls from your kids. Don't care. Don't care, because it's critical information, and it's
Yes.
using plain language, and I'm a big proponent of that, using
Yes.
plain language, because that was my motivation for starting How Do You Eat an Elephant, because of all the terminology that's out there that's confusing, and so when we're confused, a lot of times we just don't do it. We don't talk about it. But this is I'm going to make a post about that, because there's some great resources out there.
And I think you're right. When you start to talk about money, the first thing that you always encounter is the language, right?
Yes.
And the language can be intimidating, especially if you're someone who, you're working, you want to save money. But again, you have no resources as to how to save money. And you may go to the internet, but then you start to see all these acronyms, all these different words that are not plain language, and you kind of step back.
Yes.
Because I think for the most part, people want it simple because they don't have the time to do the research. And maybe they need to dedicate themselves. Again, it's set in the mind, right? That you're going to take an hour out of your day and figure out, what does this mean? How's it going to benefit me? What monies should I be putting away? Should I be putting away 1%, 2%, 5%? And in terms of what is the best thing in saving money, i.e., if I get a CD, a certificate of deposit, how much of a percent should I look for that's going to make my money grow? Those are the type of things that,
Mm-hmm.
people should be focused on. And the internet's a great tool. The internet's a great tool for many things. But I believe if someone were to really sit down for an hour, 45 minutes max a day, if they're really interested in how to get that savings train moving, they will find the information that they need.
I agree with you. I would also add, though, find a trusted professional, because the internet is great. It does have a ton of information. However, you can get confused, and that is one of the reasons why we shut down, because there's so much information, and you can't decipher what is fact, what is fiction. So financial advisors, just like so many professions out there, financial advisors can give you a ton of information without a tremendous cost.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them are free. And if they do charge a fee, believe you me, they are earning every dollar that they charge, because they can find ways for you. First of all, talking about saving, talking about CDs, talking about debt, talking about getting car loans and mortgages and all. There's an order in which you do all of those things. Another thing that causes confusion is by trying to do everything all at once. So I think it's really important for us to get sound professional advice, and take that advice and get a second opinion, and make sure it gels with what the first opinion aligns with the second opinion, aligns with your belief system.
Yeah.
So
that's important.
That's hugely important, yeah, because there is a lot of information out there that people can get very confused about. Now, you mentioned the credit score. I didn't want to. I know I went.
No, we're getting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did that when I started talking about the resources. I don't want to lose sight of the question that you asked.
Well, we know that there is something called FICO, right?
Yes.
And there was a young comedian once who said, "Who is FICO and why is she getting my money?" You know,
Yes.
because again, here's a young person asking the question about money
Right.
and not having the information.
Right.
Now, I know it is based on something called predictive analysis.
Hmm.
It takes the information. It's called FICO. Let me back up. FICO is called the Fair Isaac Corporation.
Hmm.
And it's a company that basically specializes in looking at your habits when it comes to money and then rating those habits. That's the best way I can put it. Am I on the right track, you think?
You're absolutely on the right track. It's basically your credit report card. It's your
So,
credit report card, and it measures debt. Period. End of discussion. That's it. All it measures is your debt
and
and your
so
debt worthiness, your credit worthiness,
your credit worthiness,
in their opinion.
yes, in their opinion.
Mhm.
But now, when we say debt, what does that look like?
So it's divided into, and I have notes just because I don't want to misquote this, but it's divided into 5 sections. And so if you have first of all, your range can go anywhere from 300 to 850,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in between. 300 being the lowest, 850 being the highest, meaning you have virtually perfect credit, and you can fall anywhere in between. And of your score, there's a percentage of that score that is made up of 5 different components. 30% of your score is based on how much you owe to other people.
Okay.
35% is your payment history. So those people that you owe, how well have you paid them, right?
Mm.
10% is your credit mix. So do you have all credit card debt, or do you have a credit card? Do you have a car loan? Do you have a mortgage? So your mix of,
Okay.
of what's in there. 15% is your length of history. So how long have you had your credit cards? And a lot of times, well, let me just leave it there and I'll go into that later. But 15% is your length of the credit history. And then 10% is new credit. So
Okay.
you
So
might
new
have
credit would be what?
new credit. You might have a creditor. Each one of your creditors every month sends into Expedia, TransUnion, all of the credit reporting agencies, how well you paid them that month. And that's how you build your score.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that 10% could be, you might have a brand new car loan that you've only had for 3 months. You're excited. The car is beautiful. So you're paying it on time. You might even be paying it early. They're reporting it as an on-time payment. But
Uh-huh.
you might have a Visa card that you've had for 5 years and you don't pay that on time. Or you might pay that just, a day or two late. A day or two matters too, by the way. So they might even then say, we're going to report her as having a poor payment history with us. That card will count more than your new car loan
Mm.
because
Wow.
you haven't had that car loan that long. And
Right.
that's
So
10% of the score, but it's a factor.
yeah, because when you start to talk about credit history, it is, like you said, based on what you've been doing,
Yes,
not what you're doing now, but what you've done in the past.
absolutely. It absolutely. And
And
that's why, and your credit stays, all of your credit stays on this report, on this credit bureau report for 7 to 10 years. There is work that you can do if you find something that's fraudulent on your report, and they encourage you to get a new report every year. You are entitled to a report from each one of the agencies every year for free. You can get them. Also, if you've been denied credit for some reason, you can get a copy of your credit report for free, because I deserve to know why I was denied.
Right.
Other than that, if you are like 6 months into that year, you've gotten a credit report already and you want another copy, you're going to have to pay a fee for that report. I don't think that it's extravagant, but you will have to pay for it.
Right.
But you want to know, and I encourage everyone to get a copy of their 3 credit bureau reports, and go through them with a fine-tooth comb. You can dispute things that are on the report. If you find something that's not true, or something that you say, you know what, I did pay this card and I paid it on time, you can dispute that. But if you don't, other than that, your information is going to stay on that report for 7 to 10 years.
And it's a negative, whether you're disputing it or not, and it just sits there and you're not paying. Because one of the things that I found as a young person, there was a credit card bill that I had, and I just said, I ain't paying that no more. And I got my credit report the next year. And I looked at how many days I had not paid this bill, and I was mortified.
Yes.
Because when it's sitting there in front of you and you can actually see it, it's like, oh my goodness, do I look like a bum?
Oh my God. My very first credit card, my mother was no joke. I mean, no joke. She co-signed for me for a Macy's credit card to help me establish my credit. She said, the moment they call, the first time I get a letter, I'm taking it from you. Well, I was having a rip-roaring time downtown. I went to Stone. I don't know if you remember when Stone was right for Macy's. I went to Stone, and I would leave school and I would go across the street and just have a good time. Wasn't paying a blessed thing. Well, they called the house, and Jared Gaddison was like, I will take that. Thank you. And she made sure that I paid it because her name was associated to it.
Right.
That's what this is. It's about our name. It's our integrity. It's our integrity. It's our reputation.
And it's interesting that you put it that way, because nobody ever talks about it in terms of that, as far as it being of value, right? Good credit opens the door to you receiving.
That's right.
It opens the door to you receiving. So if that door is closed to you,
it's your name. At the end of the day, all we have is our name. And we have to think about it from every aspect. It's how we pay our bills. It's how we communicate with people. It's how we do our work. Do your work to the best of your ability. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to give it a perfect attempt.
Yes.
Yes. It's the same thing. It is integrity. And we don't think about it in those ways when we want those shoes.
When you're near and dear to my heart when you start talking about shoes.
Me too. And so then you realize it's not worth it. But here's the good news. It's not over.
Yes.
It's not over, because we can restore, we can rebound. There is grace. We have grace as his people. So it's just a matter, but when we're armed with the information that you're bringing up today, we'll be able to do better. We'll be able to do better.
To know better is to do better.
Know better is to do better.
This is The Collective. I am talking to the author of the webbook page, How Do You Eat an Elephant? One Bite at a Time, which deals with finances. Her name is Erica Bradley. I'm Michelle Turner. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to The Collective. My name is Michelle Turner. My guest today is the one and only Erica Bradley, and she is the author of the Facebook page, How Do You Eat an Elephant? One Bite at a Time. And it deals with finances, saving, and how you look at money and what you need to do to jump on that savings train, be it a budget, being it how you decide how much of a percentage you're going to put away a year to save, all these things. So, Erica, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure. Yes.
It's so much fun. So, and for me to say that money is fun outside of spending it for shoes,
But it
it's a
is
big
fun.
leap.
It is
It's a
fun.
big leap.
Yeah, I got you.
It's a big leap. So, we were talking about starting over
Hmm.
before the break,
Yes.
that we have grace in this, and that it is about integrity when you pay your bills on time. But we need to know what that grace looks like. Do you understand what I mean by that? In other words, I think if we arm ourselves with the proper information, that we get a sense of what it is that needs to be done
Hmm.
and how we do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you can save money and it's great to save, but I think it also is a matter of having a plan, right?
Without question. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. That's where the grace comes in. Being armed with information, making a plan, taking one small step at a time, going back to people that you owe and own it. Own
Mm,
it. And you let them know, I owe you X. I know that I owe you X. This is my plan.
hmm
And you know what? I one of my other favorite expressions, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind, right? So if you owe someone money and they are a business person, they are going to understand, they are going to respect you for coming to them and saying, I have a plan and I want to pay my debt. It's that
hmm
simple. And then forgiving ourselves for where we might wind up being, because that's negative energy and it slows you down. We don't have time.
Right, right.
And then just really sticking to that plan. That's what, to me, that's what grace looks like. You know, being an adult with integrity, owning it, and seeking wise counsel on how you're
Mm,
going to move forward with getting yourself out of a situation that you might be in and moving forward. And starting off by understanding your credit score is a huge part of it, and understanding who you owe, getting that full report. And then when I say who you owe, I mean who's on your credit report, if you owe medical bills, if you owe your uncle, if you, whoever it is, putting it all down on a plan, because people do, acquire loans and things from all kinds of avenues.
right, right,
And
right.
and then knowing the prioritizing each thing that you're going to pay back. I wanted to go back to also one of the things you mentioned earlier when we talked about saving and CDs and so forth. One of the hardest things that I want people to consider, it's a hard pill to swallow. I believe that you should pay your debts back before you save. I
Huh.
think you need to have an emergency fund, right? And this is something that I learned from Dave Ramsey. I've learned it from another gentleman. His name is Jeremy Edmonds. Um,
Uh-huh.
I've heard this a number of times. You want to save $1,000 in an emergency fund. $1,000 in an emergency fund and get that as quickly as you can, because that will stop you from being able to fix your car so that you can go to work.
Right.
Then once
Right.
you have that $1,000 emergency fund, that's when you start to tackle your debt. That's when you look at your credit report and start to tackle that before you start saving anything else, because you can't build your nest egg honestly and with integrity and with a peace of mind if you owe somebody else.
Well, it's almost like, as we are taught now as women, as it is pointed out to us as women, you cannot fill somebody else's cup when yours is empty.
Come on now. Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So you have to think in terms of self. And it's not from a selfish place, like,
No.
it's more like, let me do this so that I benefit, that I can not only take care of myself, but be ready for any emergency, because listen, that's life.
Absolutely.
We don't know what's coming down the pipe day to day.
Mm-hmm.
We, as it is said, woman plans, God laughs,
Yes.
because you just don't know what's coming in your day. So you have to be ready for it. I can't even say be prepared as much as it is be ready.
Be so ready.
Be so ready. Yes, sir.
So ready. Yeah.
Because you just don't know. I mean, when I tell you the biggest surprise of my life in 2019, when I had a medical emergency.
Mm.
Clear out of the blue. I'm walking one morning. I got the car on. I'm all ready to go to work. My bags are in the car. Just want to take out a small bag of trash. And I'm getting in the car. And it was a good thing that I didn't lock the front door.
Mm.
I took a step.
Wow.
And it was like my whole knee collapsed.
Yes.
And I could not move. I couldn't move. So I had to really stand there for a second and kind of get my bearings and deal with this pain. But long story short, that was a medical emergency that I fortunately was prepared for.
Yes.
I have health insurance.
Yes.
But sooner or later, there's going to be some way that you've got to come out of your pocket before you hit that deductible, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to pay that bill.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I had to pay part of that bill. Had I not had the money, and it was just a fluke thing, I had been saving money because one of my nephews was getting married. So I wanted to have a little bit of money, on the side to get us, we're traveling, we're going out of state, wanted to have some money in the bank for that. And, as it started to grow, I said, well, cool. I'll be fine when I pull out my, my credit card when I need it. And this happened 2 weeks before we were getting ready to go.
Wow.
So it was more or less being ready.
Yes.
As opposed to a preparation type thing.
Absolutely.
And for the first time, honestly, in my life, I was very happy that I had the reserves to do that.
Yes. I think it's James Brown that said, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. You were ready.
I was ready.
You're ready.
But had that been Michelle 10 years ago, wouldn't have happened.
Absolutely.
And that's a hard admit, so to speak.
Of course.
Because 10 years ago, I had car note, had a kid in school. I'm working 2 jobs.
Big girl stuff.
Right.
Big girl stuff. Yeah.
But as far as even thinking about saving money back then, I knew I had to do it, but I was taking care of so many things on my own. I made enough money to take care of us,
Yes.
but I couldn't find a way to save. And now 10 years later, things are less. I don't have some of the same expenses that I had before. So I can save.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen to the average person. I am a champion or advocate of kind of really finding a way to save $10 a week,
Mm-hmm.
$5 a week. And I took your advice about the $5, by the way.
Oh, you did. Yes.
I took your advice.
Yes.
So every time that I break a bill and I got, a little bit more money left over from that bill, I'll take out $5. So I'm doing good so far. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because I just found a $5 bill curled up in my wallet that I had intended on putting in that savings.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, here it is. Good. So I'm doing pretty well with it. And I am set. My mind is set on doing that.
And it's funny. So now you get excited about that. Whereas, and I'm like that too. A couple of years ago, I would have gotten excited when I found an extra $5 bill, and I would have said, "Oh, I can go to Starbucks. I can go."
Yes.
I would have thought something that, but now it's just none of that stuff. I still
Yeah.
enjoy. I have a fun time. Don't get me wrong, but there's so much better out there.
Well, again, it's priorities, right?
It's priorities. Yeah.
It's priorities. It's how you look at where you are in life in this moment, right? And we all know needs change. We all know that you look at things a whole lot different, because you're thinking in terms of, I laugh at myself. I call it my Louboutin fund, right? The $5.
Yeah. Really.
But in reality, it's like it's a whatever I want it to be fund.
That's right. And if they're Louboutins, then you've earned that.
Right. It's a reward.
It's a reward. Speaking of, a change in mindset, I wanted to mention something too when we talk about the credit score.
Yes.
And I said it before, but I want to make sure that I reiterate, it is just a measurement of your debt. It only measures your debt. So, and I'm really a proponent of women, people, everyone, but striving to be cash payers. And so you were talking about having your savings account. You're talking about saving your $5 in your extra red bottom account, so all of those things, cash is still queen.
Yes, very much so.
So none of this looks at this FICO score doesn't look at how much money you have in the bank.
Right.
And that is really the measurement of how well you're doing. If you've got a high credit score, but you've got a lot of people on there that you owe, that's a very different picture than someone who's got a high cash balance in their savings account. That's a very different picture.
So, in your humble opinion, what is more important? Is it more important to have the great credit score, or is it more important to have money in the bank?
I don't know if I can answer that one way or the other. I'll tell you why. It's incredibly important to have a good credit score when every one of the debtors on there has a zero balance, because that history is still going to be on there. So that car loan that you paid on time, but you don't owe anymore, you've got the title sitting in your lockbox in your house. That credit card that's still on your credit report, but the card is in pieces in your shredder because you're not using it anymore. I'm so serious, because you're not using it anymore, but the history is still there on your credit report, right? So
Yes.
you've got that high credit score, because a low credit score means that you've got some people that you've got to go back to and make amends. But it is incredibly important and liberating and boss goals to have a high balance in your checking or savings account, because guess what? Now you can go to the car dealership and you can buy a car and pay for it.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about, once that new car smell wears off, now I'm not thrilled with this car anymore. I like it, but I'm not excited as I was the day that I bought it or leased it. And now I still have to pay for it. So how beautiful will that feel? How good will you feel when you go to the car dealership and you pay cash for your car, and then you drive someplace and have yourself a big juicy steak or a lobster or a great vegan salad, if that's, whatever.
If that's your thing, yeah.
You don't owe anybody anything. So that was a very long answer to your question. You want to have zero balances on that credit score. And I know people that don't even have a credit score because they have a poor one because they had bad credit. They paid everybody off, so it still says zero, but they're rebuilding that score back up. But they don't care, because their bank account, they can take that account and buy whatever they want, buy whatever.
Right.
So that's the goal, to get to the point where you aren't dependent upon Fair Isaac giving you a report card. You're not in his school. He doesn't have a right to do that. Right?
Right. And I think for many of us, there comes a time when FICO, like you said, that's your focus. You want to clean it up. You want to get it done. You want to, but it's, as we know, it's not a fun process.
No.
It's not an easy process.
No, it isn't.
But to understand what that means, and to understand that it should not dominate your life, you've got to work on it.
Sure. One bite at a time.
You got to work on it. One bite at a time. Absolutely.
And you feel really good. And the other thing too, when we were talking about processes for paying stuff off, there's two schools of thought. So it both fall under what they call the debt snowball. And
yes,
you've heard of the debt snowball, and it's very common. But I just want to mention that, and again, it goes according to your belief system. It goes according to the professional advice that you've gotten. But I want to just encourage people to use that method. So the debt snowball is when you take your credit report. You've gotten your report, right? You've got a list of everybody that you owe. You can list it from smallest debt to the highest debt. And pay the minimum on everything except the smallest debt. The smallest debt, you're going to pay more than the minimum and as much as you possibly can to get that eliminated. When that's done, you're going to take whatever you were paying for the smallest one and go to debt number 2. And instead of only paying the minimum on debt number 2, now you're putting what you were paying for debt number 1 along with what you were paying to debt number 2. Everybody else still getting just the minimums, and paying that off just as quickly as you can. And it's like a snowball. It gathers momentum as you go along till you get down to that bottom one, and you're just throwing everything at your last debt. And you're doing this as quickly as you can to get rid of your debt. The other way that you can do the debt snowball is to look at your debts in order of the interest rate that you're paying. You want to get rid of the ones that are charging you the most interest each month, and apply the same principle, the same method, but pay off the one that is charging you the most interest. Now, either one is going to give you a sense of satisfaction, and you're going to come away with a sense of accomplishment. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, I did it. If I did it for one, I could do it for the next. And I could do
Yes.
it, and so that's one thing that you want to do. And look at everything again. Look at everybody that you owe. Look at all your creditors. And we're doing this with everything except your mortgage.
Okay.
Everything except your mortgage, because your mortgage is not considered bad debt. You're eventually going to get to the point where you're not going to have any credit card debt or any car loans or any of that other stuff, no medical debt or any. So you'll be able to put extra money toward your mortgage. But right now, just rock out with your mortgage, paying your mortgage the way you are.
And is that looked at more as an investment?
It's absolutely looked at it as an investment, but you won't be able to get it if your credit score is jacked up. So, I mean, there's lots of professionals that I saw a Facebook post this morning from Roberta Hosky. And one of those professionals that knows how to work with people to get a mortgage if they have some issues. I don't know how she does it, but I do know that she's one of those professionals. And I would venture to say, people out there, but you want to, again, it's all is not lost if you want to buy a house, and that's a tremendous investment and something I encourage everyone to do, because that is the only thing that appreciates in value. That car, as fly as it is, as soon as you drive it off.
That's it.
So all is not lost if anyone is having credit issues. There's all kinds of programs where you can buy a home. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you come to the table in the best possible position. And that's by eliminating as much debt as you can. And if all you've got is $5 extra to pay toward it, so what? Some people are going to have $5. Some people are going to have $500. Doesn't matter. Do not despite small beginnings.
Zechariah. Erica Bradley, thank you so much. As always, you make it simple. You make it fun. It's an interesting conversation. I appreciate your knowledge.
Thank you. It's all a blessing to me. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Erica Bradley is the author of the Facebook page, How Do You Eat an Elephant? One Bite at a Time, giving us everyday finance advice. And once again, I appreciate her. She my girl.
My girl.
This has been The Collective on WSME Enlightenment Radio, giving you more enlightenment in your day. I'm Michelle Turner. See you soon.